Okay, good. Eric, thank you very much. Now this is really important. This is a YouTube clip that one of my daughters sent to me. My job here today is to infect you with my incorrigible optimism about the future. And this YouTube clip, if we can get it going for later in the program, will, I think, contribute to that. This was sent to me. Maybe if we get it going, I'll even start with this. It doesn't really have that much to do with broadband as such, but it has a lot to do with our state of knowledge today, where we're going, how we've progressed. And my daughter is a first-year medical student, and this is a piece used in one of her classes. And it just so fills me with awe and joy and enthusiasm for the future that I felt it necessary to share it with you. Oh my goodness. Well, let me start anyway while they're doing this. I'm sure everyone's attention is going to be, okay, that's good. Well, Catherine, thanks again for having me here. Over the years, we've shared many different kinds of moods together, ranging from joy and optimism to anger and despair. As I was preparing this, I was thinking back to the year 2009, which is 3 long years ago. It seems like a different world, doesn't it? At that point, we'd had 8 years of frustration with the Bush administration, and we now had a new administration in D.C. that seemed to not only get what we're trying to accomplish, but seemed to support it vigorously. We had our 160-member U.S. broadband coalition that was genuinely working hard to find consensus among the public and private sectors in a number of areas. We had a brand new Recovery Act with $7 billion appropriated to stimulate broadband deployment, adoption, and use. And we're on, and I'm going to pause. Okay, so can we dim the lights just a little bit? Yeah. Can we drop the lights there a little bit behind me? Okay.
No. Thank you.
Finally tonight, keeping boredom out of biology. A Harvard biology professor recently was looking for a way to spice up his course and attract more biology majors. His idea? Get one of America's great animators to make a film showing what's going on in everyone's bodies right now. So what are Harvard students seeing these days? Our Robert Krulwich thought you'd be as fascinated as we were.
This is what a human cell looks like in a textbook, dull and still. But your cells are alive. They're in constant motion. They should be a movie, says Harvard biology professor Robert Krulwich.
Yes, now this is a protein called a motor protein. Now it is real. That's walking along one of those microtubules.
This clumpy thing?
Yes.
When you're dragging that huge sack.
So it's dragging this membrane sac full of proteins.
This is the stuff we want to get out of the cell. Now, how does it know what direction to go? If I told it to turn around, would it be able to?
It can't because the foot only fits in one direction going one way.
So the groups are preset to go in one particular direction?
Yes.
And how many of these roads are being built every, second?
Oh, thousands. I mean, there are thousands of these fibers, if not tens of thousands in every cell. And also,
In your cell, right now, as you're looking all the time.
right, and they're being built and they're being broken down.
And this is typical cell behavior. Nothing special. There's the cargo being dumped out of the cell. So there you are sitting watching this on TV, and you're thinking, well, I'm pretty much doing nothing. But your 72 trillion cells are a riot of magic, elegant, exquisitely organized activity in you right now. Robert Goldwich, ABC News, New York.
Makes you want to go back and take biology. That is World News for this Tuesday. I'm Charlie Gibson, and I hope you had a good day. For all of us at ABC News, have a good day.
Okay. Well, that was 2.5 minutes, and there's, for any of you who are interested, there's always also an hour-long version that goes into these things in greater detail. Thanks very much. And that's part of my basic feeling that we are advancing, sometimes faster, sometimes slower, sometimes in fits and starts, but we are advancing in amazing ways, and what we're talking about here is inevitable, and our challenge is to make it happen for all of us earlier so that we can take advantage of it and be leaders in the process and gain the benefits of leadership rather than waiting for things to happen. And so, back to where I was talking about all the great things that we thought were happening. I paused at the point of saying that not only did we have the Recovery Act that appropriated $7 billion for broadband, but we also had that act requiring the FCC to develop the national broadband plan within a year. We had here in North Carolina and elsewhere in the Southeast various projects already underway and others in the planning stages. We had Jane Patterson's ENC, which was showing the nation how you can stimulate broadband adoption, deployment, and use, not just in rural areas, but also in depressed urban areas. And others were listening all around the country. And to be sure, we faced that year yet another proposed barrier in North Carolina. But since 2005, we had beaten back these barriers every time they came up in virtually every place. And we were pretty optimistic that we were going to do the same. And in fact, in 2009, we did do the same. And then along came the midterm elections of 2010. And those hit us in the solar plexus like a sledgehammer. And suddenly the progress that we thought we were making began to grind to a halt in some places. We couldn't have a dialogue with some of the members of the Tea Party and other representatives on whom their views had a big influence that year. And the world had significantly changed. And let me just quote what one astute observer on how the world began to look at that time put it. The United States is now governed by a permanent political class drawn from both parties that is increasingly cut off from the concerns of regular people. These Republicans and Democrats have allied with big business to mutual advantage to create corporate crony capitalism. The real political divide in the U.S. may no longer be between friends and foes of big government, but between friends and foes of vast, remote, unaccountable institutions, both public and private. Now, does that ring a bell for some of us? Who do you suppose said that? Who do you suppose I was quoting? Any guesses? Well, that was Sarah Palin from a speech with which at least I didn't agree with anything else, but I certainly agreed with that. And in fact, I would put what we were seeing in some places, particularly in North Carolina at that point, this way. As we all know, one of the greatest scientists of all time was Sir Isaac Newton. He once said, "If I've been able to see farther than others, it's because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." And what we were seeing was reverse of that. In all too many places, giant communications carriers were standing on our shoulders to prevent us from seeing as far as we could see. But let me assure you, I am very confident that whatever short-run setbacks we may be experiencing, we're going to win in the end, and that end is going to be sooner than many people think. And let me give you some reasons why that's the case. But let me also say, why this is so important for us at this point in time, to set up why I think all these things are going to happen. The slides we saw were very enlightening, but they were a snapshot of where we are today. Looking forward and looking at projections of where things are heading, one of the things that doesn't come through from the reality of where we've been and where we are today is the role of China, for example. How many of you know that China came from nowhere and passed Japan last year? You can never completely trust figures from China, but some figures say that they currently have something in the order of 37 million fiber lines compared to 20 for Japan and 9 for the US, and that over the next 3 to 4 years, they will have in the vicinity of 150 fiber lines. Now, percentage of population is an important statistic, but when you're dealing with a country as big as China, sheer numbers make a big difference. There are in China, for example, more than 300 million English speakers. That's almost as many as our entire population. And just by sheer numbers, all of the benefits that we say and believe that fiber will offer will be available in China to a much greater extent than it is here. All that innovation that can happen, all of the product support, all of those things will be happening there. And we can't do things the way China can do them. We can't just declare as a matter of public fiat that we are going to move to fiber off DSL overnight. We can't create whole cities with 400,000 workers that work for very low wages, that have screens next to their factories for those who, to prevent suicides. We can't do a lot of the things that the Chinese can do, but we need to do lots of things for the United States our own way if we are going to remain globally competitive in this environment. And so why am I optimistic about where we're going? Let me just list a few. First of all, there are cities like Chattanooga and several others across the nation. There are now approximately 60 to 70 municipal fiber networks that are or could be made capable of gigabit connectivity. We have Google's project in Kansas City, which, as you know, as it was in the course of developing, attracted the interest of communities across the country, 1,100 communities across the country, and hundreds of thousands of individuals responded to that initiative. We have SonicNet's gigabit project in Sebastopol, California, which is working out extremely well there and will likely expand into the provision of fiber service in San Francisco soon. We have Case Western Reserve University's Gigabit pilot in Cleveland. We have Blair Levin's GigU project in 37 college and university towns across the United States. You've heard about some of those things this morning. We've got hundreds of stimulus-funded projects that are just now getting to the point where they are in construction and beginning to deploy and beginning to provide services. We have various White House initiatives focusing on the relationship between broadband and economic development and job creation and many other uses of advanced communications networks. The most recent of these to launch is Project US Ignite, which is trying to connect together various cities like Lafayette and Chattanooga and Washington that have advanced communications networks and experiment with new uses and innovative ways to use these networks. Now, taking all these things together, the total is greater than the sum of the parts by a great deal, because it's not just a question of figuring out how to deploy networks, although that's very much up in the air. Google, for example, is experimenting with new ways of trenching that will make it much less disruptive and a lot cheaper to deploy networks. But what these projects have done is to focus public attention on advanced communications networks, what they can do, what we think they'll be able to do, but don't quite know yet, because the single most important thing holding us back is that we lack a vision as to how we can use these networks successfully. And now we have all of this fertile experimentation going on at the university level, in local communities. You have here in Chattanooga, for example, the Geek Search this summer. They have had competitions, they've had events where they support bringing entrepreneurs together for boot camps where they make their proposals, they're reviewed by business people with experience, they're funded, they're launched. This is happening all across the country where fiber networks are. In Kansas City, for example, the businesses, the local communities, the foundations are all thinking about what you can do once you have a gigabit network in place. And this spirit of experimentation is very high in these communities. Eventually, and I think sooner rather than later, the results will begin to spread out across the country. When you have thousands of individuals who participated in the development of the National Broadband Plan, in the stimulus program, when you have so many communities that have gotten to know themselves, that have gotten to understand where their assets are, where their weaknesses are, that have come to know who their neighbors are, what institutions there are, what institutional needs are, all of this at the local level, and much of it going on at a regional level as well. Many communities are beginning to realize that they don't have all the resources they need within their community, but if they go outside their borders into interlocal relationships or regional relationships, that much more is possible to them. And all across the country, these debates are all happening at the same time. We ourselves, let me pause for a quick commercial. We ourselves are involved in trying to stimulate this kind of multidisciplinary approach to the relationship between broadband and economic development and job creation. Broadband communities, Scott DeGarmo, please stand up and look around to the group so folks can view you, has been a tremendous instigator of this sort of work. His annual Broadband Communities Summit has, for the last 2 years, had a whole track on broadband economic development and job creation, which I've had the privilege of chairing. And this year in April 24th through the 26th, we'll have a whole day and a half on job creation in broadband. And Scott, to make it possible for as many local officials and economic development professionals and others, has offered almost free attendance at these things. There's a nominal charge of only $100, only because he needs to discourage people signing up and then not showing up, because that wreaks havoc on conference planning, commitments to rooms and food and things like that. That proposal is available to March 20. I strongly encourage you, if you can, to come and join us for this event, and indeed for the whole Broadband Community Summit. And so we are going to find solutions. We are going to find ways to take advantage of high-capacity networks, and that will spread everywhere. And in that kind of environment, we're going to put tremendous pressure on the incumbent carriers either to step up to the plate and provide affordable access to high-capacity broadband networks in ways that communities need, or to get out of the way. 5 years ago, people didn't know what broadband was. Now everyone at least has some semblance of knowledge as to what we're talking about, and an increasing number are understanding what the potential is. And that's just going to continue to grow, and it'll grow geometrically as all of these groups of individuals from so many places around the country get together, compare notes, learn what works, perfect what works well, discard what doesn't work, and we move ahead. Now, time, of course, matters. We have children who are growing up who don't want to wait or can't wait 5 years for these things to happen. I think it'll be faster than 5 years, but we've got to work at it. Today, for example, the Pew Foundation has released statistics saying that of American young people 18 to 24, 54% of them are out of work. That is the highest percentage of young people in America out of work that has ever been recorded since the time that statistics have been kept on that figure, beginning in the late 1940s. Fortunately, many of the young people are using the difficulties of finding jobs to get continuing education, and that's a good thing. Except I disagree with one of the candidates who thinks this is not necessarily a good thing. I think it's a very good thing. But we don't have time to wait. I reinforce what Jane says, that go out and find those politicians who need to support us. We need to educate them. We need to work with them. And let me just pause and end. People may have some questions for either of the two of us. And thank you again for the opportunity to be here. And let's go out and kick some butt and be back next year to celebrate as we did in 2009. Okay?